My anime journey started with Attack on Titan. It left me so astounded that I wrote and made an entire video essay to try at least capture my amazement to showcase to you guys. The end of that video asked a simple question. What anime do I watch next? Well, after reading all the comments and with some thinking, I only really had one choice. This video for some reason was always quite difficult for me to write. This isn't going to be a breakdown of is Death Note some masterpiece or a deep dive into its philosophy. The show is 17 years old. Most topics on this anime specifically have already been covered. So for the next however many minutes, I just really want to have a conversation with you guys. No theatrics or melodrama, just right down the barrel. Now with Death Note being so old, it did leave me in a very interesting position. For this video, I have a few topics to discuss as someone who is new to anime, to ask two very simple questions. First being, is Death Note 17 years later still worth recommending to someone new to anime? When I first picked up the show, I was immediately hooked. Death Note to me has such a great start with such simple goals. Introducing Light, the show's main concept of a book that can kill people, and setting up that L needs to catch this guy. I was on board. Like with AOT, it only took this small hook for me to go, yeah, you have my attention, let's go for this ride. Yet when speaking to mates, I was always given a worried look as if I stumbled into something I wasn't ready for. Their hands would raise and they say, Charles, Death Note is great, but then try and pull back my expectations. After finishing the show, I kinda understand why they thought they needed to do this. So as someone that is new to anime, Death Note did show some red flags, stuff that 17 years later hasn't aged all too well. The first thing to mention is the way the show is a bit,
Monchichi! Long time no see, you two! Light hasn't been home at all lately.
To say it's a bit over the top is not a stretch, but more evidently and less hypersexual is this famous scene.
I'll take a potato chip and eat it.
And old me would say, oh, this sucks, it's way too over the top, but believe it or not, I just don't feel this way. I do think this can be equated towards the way Tetsuro Araki handles animation. After Death Note, this man would go on to, yeah, you guessed it, direct Attack on Titan over at WIT for 3 seasons. So for me, as Charles, Death Note almost felt like second nature, like I'd seen some of these tricks and movements before, even if it was in a completely different skin. So Death Note being to anime was the first thing to come to mind when trying to come up with reasons why the show might not work today for someone new. The second, the way Death Note handles its female characters. Here's a quick recap on how all of the endings to their stories or arcs go. It won't take long. Death 1, two, and 3. And yeah, it's not great. In my Attack on Titan video, I mentioned the term fan service, and that just as a concept, it's something that's hard for me when starting new animes as an outsider due to all its connotations. Now, Death Note is far from those other shows that I haven't bothered watching, and sure, it certainly has its moments, but it's not what I'm talking about for the most part. For starters, I think the small arc near the start of the show with Naomi and Light is legit probably some of the best in the show. Naomi is cunning and fun to watch. With what little screen time she had, she was literally one of the most important factors in the first third of the show. Her death being arguably the most undeserving and showcasing the extent of what Light will do to get his ideal utopia. We really, or well at least I really felt sorry for her. Until this case, she was basically set for life. She was going to be happy, she had a husband, until randomly, one day, she just came across a 17-year-old and wanted to chat about a case. For anyone watching that is new to the show, their issues won't lie with Naomi. However, Misa Misa, sadly for me, her character all hinged on its conclusion. Yet, she was just absent throughout the show's most important moments. You have a character with so much screen time, so much build up, and to me, is wasted sitting at home waiting for her husband to come home, or is sidelined for no good reason from a writing perspective. I am unsure if maybe I am missing something here, but to me, this was the biggest aspect of the ending that was the first of alarm bells to go off. I do want to touch on Kiyomi Takada. This aspect of the story is by far the weakest for me. So much time invested, and I just don't feel like the character really went anywhere. There are greater offenders, but Misa Misa was thrown to the wayside for a third of the show for her. for a love triangle. I love the idea of Light's handling of her being seriously manipulative, but her demise is quite anticlimactic. I don't think she serves herself or the story all too well. It just serves like another plot thread to tie up in the end and was a catalyst for Light losing. Now, to the pacing and its ending, this is the point where every Death Note fan has debated or just is so tired of hearing, so I'm gonna keep this pretty quick. Literally, most conversations with Death Note fans before watching the show went like this: oh, you're gonna watch the show? Stop at episode 25. Now, I was gonna write a bunch of variations of this line, but it really is just that. Stop at 25, stop at... Some people say this is where the show should have ended, that Light should have won. I am here to say I could not disagree more with a take about Death Note. For Light to win, it means you think his actions are just. That in a world like our own, cruel and unkind, you ought to think if someone had the powers of light that they should strike down those who are doing wrong. This isn't the answer. The answer in the show might not be much better, but the concept of Kira is one we as the audience aren't meant to sympathize for. We watched for 37 episodes for all of it to come down to the actions of the last two. With so many threads left in an uninteresting last note. We know the ending. We knew Light loses here. We just had to wait for the why. And the reasoning isn't rewarding. There is so much here to unpack, yet it doesn't matter. What matters is that, does this ruin the experience? For quite a while, it might seem I speak for new anime watchers in that Death Note is not a good place to start. That if you were that friend, you might have actually dissuaded people from the medium as a whole because of you, because you may have made the wrong call. But I'm here to say that this is not the case. That Death Note, 17 years later, is still great. This video being formatted this way allows me to be real and not feel like I need some enticing bait to hold your attention. Death Note does have its issues, but the experience as a whole of the entire thing, including its ending, is a package deal that I think everyone entering the space of anime needs to see. The first 25 episodes, without a doubt, is thrilling. Light and L both had some of the most 1000 IQ plays that I've ever seen depicted on screen. There are passages Light is explaining what he is doing, and I'm just sitting there going, fuck, that is so cool. I'm always a sucker for when shows pair its opposing characters against one another, but because normally that would mean the story ends within a few pages or scenes, we have to be okay with seeing it only sparingly.
You've got to be kidding me.
Death Note saw this trend throughout media history and went, fuck it, put them next to each other throughout the entire show. To put the cherry on top, its leads, Light and L, have themes that have aged so fucking well. Later on, Nier's theme also slaps. Just overall, the music in this show is just such a pivotal part of the experience, and coming from Attack on Titan, being rocked by another score in anime, it's 2 for 2. It's good, I like it. But to what I think is the biggest reason why I think Death Note works so well today is just the archetype of Light as a character. People crave stories now more than ever that have their leads that are written similar to Light, even more so than 20 years ago. Most media we are consuming now are meta commentaries on the stuff we watch, taking concepts like the Superman and ask, what if he was mean or the bad guy? Well, Light is that guy. Not a Superman, but a god nonetheless. Light is the OG. So for new viewers, this is familiar ground, but it's cut from the purest version of this cloth. Though this thought doesn't end here, because pulling back a little bit, this leads perfectly to my second big question from the start of the video. Even though Netflix tried before and failed, is it really worth trying again to adapt in live action? How does Light tie into this? Well, in a new adaptation, most likely by the Stranger Things duo the Duffer Brothers, we can see a new version of Light, and that can ride on the high of this newfound love for a not so good protagonist, while also being able to address all of our faults of the original manga or anime. It all ties together perfectly. To me, it's the perfect opportunity to open the show to a new audience, to shut up that one friend we all have that goes, nah mate, I won't watch that, I don't like it, it's anime.
You shut the fuck up! You shut the fuck up!
I was that person. I am not anymore. My hope now is to join you guys into helping people, or just trying to convince people to open up the roadblocks, to stop gatekeeping themselves from amazing movies and amazing TV shows. Because just look at The Last of Us on HBO, and video games is a much more accepted medium here in the West, but you've taken something that was already popular and you put it into a new medium and it's exploded the IP to new heights. And I really think Death Note is really just set up perfectly to be adapted to just take over our space. To sum up my thoughts nicely and just to put a nice bow on it, Death Note was my second anime ever. And even though friends warned me that it might not lived up to the height of Attack on Titan and to temper my expectations, for me at least, it certainly lived up to the hype. And if you have a friend that is tiptoeing their way into the industry, Death Note is absolutely a starter anime that you should recommend. And to give you guys a little update on myself, I made an Attack on Titan a few months ago, and since I've been binging TV shows or animes to try and catch up. I've seen Your Name, I've seen Berserk, Cyberpunk Edge Runners, Chainsaw Man, Vinland Saga, and lastly, all of Evangelion. And I'm working my hardest to try and cover all those animes the best way I can. I'm currently moving house, so it's really put me like in a really weird position. I'm trying to work as hard as I can. I want to get these videos out, but the biggest problem I'm facing is how do I cover a lot of these topics? For Death Note, like you guys know, it's a show that's 17, 18 years old. How do you cover something that is just so talked about? So what I want your help with is, who are the anime channels that you watch, and how do you think I should move into this space to have my unique voice? My idea was to be adding skits and adding a meta narrative to these videos that makes it a little harder to make, a little longer to make, but it adds my own personal inflection onto these videos. Now, I cut all that for this video. This was meant to be like an Elvis light debate. It was gonna be a lot longer. It was gonna be one side thinks that Death Note is aged poorly, the other that, it's aged beautifully, and at the end it was gonna come to this conclusion that Death Note is amazing and you should watch it. But this is all new territory for me, so I really wanna know your thoughts. What are your favorite channels that you watch for anime, and what do you look for in anime video essay videos? But thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure to like, subscribe, all that usual stuff. Your support on my Attack on Titan video has been beyond amazing. I can't thank you guys enough. But yeah, see you guys.